All right, I'm getting you are live flashing lights. So good evening, parents, guardians, family members, for our incoming class of 2024 first year and provisional students, and our class of fall 2020 cohort for our transfer students. For those of you who haven't logged on, didn't log on last week, or haven't gotten a chance to stop in at one of my many sessions I feel over the last couple of months, my name is Lindsay Barnt. I'm the director for the Office of Student Transitions here at TCNJ, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for our caffeine chat. So cheers to that, for starters. In the spirit of honesty, as I said last week, it's going to be decaf because it's 7:30 on a Sunday, and I don't need any more caffeine today. But hopefully you were able to grab a mug and settle in. It's our second session of about 7, I think, coming up here. It's going to be weekly for the rest of the summer. But my first, having a special guest, which I'm so excited about, and hopefully our technology doesn't have any issues there. So I'm just wanting to see, oh good, you all are saying hello, which means hopefully that you can hear me and see us, or hear us and see us, which is fantastic. I really appreciate that. So welcome, good evening. And let's get started. So I have a very special guest joining me tonight, Yvonne Cruz, who is our Executive Director for Student Success and Retention at the College of New Jersey. So 3 really important offices fall under kind of her purview. The first is our Educational Opportunity Fund program, or EOF program. The second is the Tutoring Center. And again, per my email earlier, and she's going to get into a lot more detail, but that's more of your academic or your course content specific tutoring. And she also oversees our Center for Student Success, which does a whole bunch of stuff. So just to give you a heads up on how tonight is going to go, she's going to do a presentation for the first, say, 15 or 20 minutes, has some slides, good stuff to kind of do that. And then we'll take some Q&A from you all for another probably 15 minutes or so. And then I want to reserve the last 15 to 20 minutes to update you on some things, obviously with the Fall 2020 Flex program. It was announced 2 weeks ago, but there's still all sorts of things up in the air, or things that we're still fleshing out. And so every week I'd like to give a little bit of time at the end to just catch you up to date with all of the new things that I learned in the last week, or in this case, 2 weeks. So it's a little bit about how our hour is going to go. It's going to go pretty quickly. So I will keep monitoring those questions if you want to keep sending them in. Also, fun fact, and Yvonne I'll jump into this in a little bit. So Yvonne is also you all, right? So she has a son who is an entering college first year student. He broke my heart, unfortunately. He did not choose TCNJ, but he's going to a great institution. But talk about somebody who just acutely knows exactly where you're sitting. And she is navigating just not only your student going off to school, but your student going off to school in the middle of a global pandemic. So I know that she's going to, have some really great insights, and certainly can have a lot of empathy with you on that, or sympathy, I should say, with you on that. So I am done talking. I'm going to pull up your presentation, Yvonne. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Welcome tonight. I'm very excited to be here and to be Lindsay's first guest. As Lindsay said, I am a mom of I have an only child. So my only is going off to college this year, and it is a scary time. And it's even for someone who's done this. I've been in higher ed for 25 years. I've been at the College of New Jersey for 25 years. And I've been affiliated with the institution for longer than that. I'm an alum. I came in 1990, and I did my 4 years at TCNJ, walked away for a year to do some teaching, and then came back in 95, and I've never left since. So 2 names, at least 3 present. I mean, I've been around for a long time, but that means I've seen a lot. A lot has changed, a lot has stayed the same. The heart and the soul of the institution is still the same. And I'm really excited to be in what I've always called my dream job of really helping students succeed, to be their best, and to navigate the transition that is really the most challenging part of college. Because that's why we use the phrase, the keys to success. Everyone's got the keys. It's just figuring out which key opens up the right lock, how to navigate this new and really different world. So tonight, I'm going to chat with you briefly through this presentation to give you some good background on what my area is. And tonight, I'm focusing specifically on the Center for Student Success and our Tutoring Center. And I am hopefully going to give you the good basics, the foundation of what those are and what those can offer your students. And then I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and help you get a feel for the landscape of the college and what your students' experience is going to be like. So, the keys to success. I like to start off with this great analogy that I found. I wish I could take the credit for it, but high school to college is like checkers to chess. Same board, very different rules. I know that all of your students and you as parents understand that, it's not the same, but sometimes for our students, it feels the same. They are sitting in a classroom or in that environment. And sometimes you just do what you're comfortable with, do what you've always done. You fall into similar patterns, and helping our students understand that even though it looks the same and there's readings to do and tests to study for and papers to write, it's a lot more complex than that. So that board may look the same, but you got to think about 2-3 moves ahead. You've got to really think of different ways of approaching different things. So that way, when somebody hits you with a move, wait, I've got 2 or 3 other strategies to come at this with. And these are tools that for many of our students, they've never really had to work with, or muscles that they've never really exercised. They've got it. They've just got to figure out what to do with it. And the first thing is the true acknowledgement of that things are going to be different, and that they have to make that transitional change. And that is for both the Tutoring Center and the Center for Student Success, one of the key pieces to why they exist, why they were initially created to begin with, this particular CSS. I'll reference it that way, the Center for Student Success. We reference it as CSS. And it was made to be a type of safety net for our students, that to have that home base, a place where they can come to as they're getting their feet wet and slowly getting in and trying to figure out how they best can navigate things. So moving on, what we found to be the keys to success, and these general broad statements are really what your students want to strive for, to be prepared for those college level expectations. And the key piece of that isn't necessarily their intellectual capacity, their aptitude, but it really is that time management piece and self-discipline, imposing a self-structure. TCNJ accepts and attracts a whole lot of fabulous, uber busy student leaders, perfectionists, and that is wonderful. But these students, chances are, were super scheduled from crack of dawn until evening. They had clubs and organizations and AP classes and so many things, boom, 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 all throughout the day. Then after school, they had sports. They were involved in the arts, whether it was band or chorale or plays or any of those types of work, family commitments. There was always such a structure imposed on them, because that's just what life was like. They got a little taste of it now, the latter part of their senior year, when we all had to go online, but still that imposing a type of structure on themselves and disciplining themselves is a whole new world that honestly, usually no matter where you go, K-12 doesn't really prepare you for that, because it's not built that way. So that's a big shift, and we can help with that. Transitioning the study skills to the college level, that really is understanding that it's not memorization anymore, but it's really synthesizing that knowledge. How do I apply it? Don't spit back what your professor told you X, Y was, but how do you use it? When do you use it? When is it appropriate? All of those things, and making inferences and all those types of things. It again is exercising some muscles that sometimes in some classes you really didn't have to do. So helping to transition, how do I need to study and learn this content to be able to give the professor the proof that I know it and I understand it, and that is simply not rote memory anymore. Recognizing passive learning behaviors. Again, the way K-12 is structured, the teacher teaches, the student learns, they give it back in a test, and that's it. But when you're struggling and you need to go visit office hours or ask more challenging questions, or perhaps say, you know what, is there a different text I can use that explains this concept a little differently? They've never had to do that before. So this getting out of that passivity that they've kind of been conditioned to do in K to 12 is a key piece in helping them start to transition and do well in college. Approaching someone, they saw their teachers all the time. Even if they didn't have class every day, they passed by them in the hallway. Now they're going to have professors that they may have only twice a week or oftentimes only once a week. And this is in a traditional circumstance. Now online, they may not have the opportunity to meet them in person in this semester, depending on how their courses will be structured. So not feeling that anxiety about connecting with them in whatever means that the professor this year, all advising appointments will be virtual, and I'll chat about that towards the end of the presentation. But that, and then, once our world gets back to whatever the new normal is, meeting a professor during office hours. What do I do? How do I meet with my faculty advisor or other faculty or staff members? Learning to be who you are as a student and that independent student, and to learn to self-advocate, because mom and dad aren't going to know what's going on in their student's life. I can't talk to you about your student. There's a lovely little thing called FERPA that, and trust me, I'm going to be struggling with this myself as I have a student going into college. Doesn't matter who's paying the bills. That student now, as soon as they step foot on that campus, even if they're 17 at that point, it doesn't matter. They're recognized as an independent student, and they will be the person that is given the bill. They are the person who's the professor is going to be communicating with. And if they need to challenge a grade or challenge some other kind of circumstance, even outside of the classroom, it's going to have to be them. So getting into that new role is something that we can help with.
Yvonne, that's
yes.
Great too, because so my guest next week is Frank Cooper, and we're going to talk all about FERPA and the role of the parents is, stepping in now and being a coach and a supporter instead of a doer. So I love that you hit on that, because that's a nice segue for a little bit more content we're going to get into in deeper detail next week.
Oh, that's great. And to give you a little interesting trivia, though Frank looks fabulous, Frank was the one who first hired me.
No way.
And he did my first interview. So it just goes to show you that my long tenure at the institution has its value, because I could pick up the phone and call the executive director for records and registration and ask a quick question, or email him directly. But that actually, thank you, Lindsay. Now you paid me right back in talking about segue. Forming mentor relationships with your faculty and staff is key, because you don't know who we know and how we can help you navigate things. How, like I just said, I could pick up the phone and call a colleague in another office who may also be a fellow alum, or somebody that I've worked with forever and a day, and can just ask a quick question, get the right answer. One thing that I know myself and my whole team, one of our philosophies includes, if you need help, we're going to point you in the right direction, but it's not a cold, here you go, off, good luck, hopefully you get the answer that you need. No, it's, if you don't get the answer, or you start to feel like a little lost in the process, come back to us, because we want to be sure you're taken care of through this process. It's a family. That's what I love about the size of our institution. It's big enough to feel like you are going into a whole new world and having the opportunity to meet a lot of different people, but it's small enough that you're not going to get lost, literally and figuratively. And we want to be sure that you don't get lost in a whole lot of red tape. We can connect with an office. I could pick up the phone and say, I'm sending so-and-so over to student accounts. They seem to have an issue with their bill. Or, did you connect with the assistant dean yet? This is her name. This is his name. This is their contact information. Follow up with them. I'll send them a quick email, let them know that you're coming. Making the effort to get to know faculty, and also, as I said, staff, like myself and my team. We're not faculty members, we're staff members, but there are plenty of people across the campus that you can connect with, and in a formal way, and through specific programs, but also in an informal way. The whole student affairs team, pay attention to all the rest of Lindsay's guests and so forth, and the people that she references. These are all key people that can really help connect you and guide you and your students onto all the next levels that they need to have. And the last piece is being aware of the support resources. There are so many things out there, so many places, so many people, so many spaces on the campus that are there to help our students be successful. But we're not chasing down the students. They have to come to us. They have to present and let us know what the challenges are. And then we will do what we can and bend over backwards and twist ourselves into a pretzel to do the best we can for our students. But I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a parent who emailed me because they saw me give a presentation and say, my daughter, my son is struggling. Can you reach out to them? Don't tell them I told you. Oh, I get that a lot. And that's a real tough situation to put me in. They need to advocate for themselves. And that's, all of these things overlap and intertwine, but that's a big challenge as they grow to be adults. Trust me, I'm going to have to be sitting on my hands as I talk to my son and encourage him. And, I'm their worst nightmare over there because I know of all the different things that I want him to have access to. But I know that he's got to be the one to reach out for those. And my job as a parent, and your job as parents and guardians and friends and loved ones, is to notice and pay attention and recognize possibly when they might feel as though they're drowning a bit and they're feeling a little overwhelmed, and say, you know what, I remember at this coffee chat thing online that there was somebody. Why don't you reach out to her and get her information? She's got a real easy email to remember. I am Cruz, and I'll share my contact stuff at the end. But no, make sure they have that in their back pocket. You plant the seeds for them of what the resources are, because they may not need it day 1, day 5, first semester, first year. But when it is there, the challenge, they'll know where to go to. So moving on to the next slide. Let me chat with you a little bit about what the Center for Student Success is, CSS, and it's really all about academic coaching and advisement, academic advisement and supplemental advisement. This advisement and this coaching is one-on-one, personalized. This is just working directly with a student, and it is often just the generalized study skills. I am not going to be tutoring them in calculus, or one of the other staff members is not going to be reviewing their papers. This is just general study skills, study habits, and a huge chunk of the time is time management and helping students figure out how to balance things. Because honestly, their schedule is going to feel so different because, first of all, we have a unit system. 4 credits equals 1 unit. And a max load for most majors is only 4 classes. That's going to be very different than their peers at other institutions who are carrying like 5 and 6 courses. So only 4 classes in a week. Sometimes one of those courses, or maybe more than one of those courses, is only one time. They may have a whole day where they have no classes, or 2 days, or 2 days where classes don't begin till 5 o'clock. That managing of their time and self-imposing a structure so they don't roll out of bed at 4 p.m. for their 5:30 class, which happens. They don't become vampires and stay up and start their homework at midnight. We try to help them get out of those bad habits or before they start. But we can help students with that. There are many students who continue to work. Students who are involved in other clubs and organizations, in sports teams, if they're in ROTC, if they're student leaders, if they're balancing an internship. Again, this office, what we do is not just for first-year students. How do I balance it all to be successful? I might not be struggling in my classes. I'm just struggling because I'm not getting enough sleep or I'm feeling overwhelmed. And then we can help with that. And then tailoring it to each individual student. This is all professional staff. These are employees who have been working at the college for some time and have a strong understanding of all of these types of skills and know what our students need, really understand the courses, and help to tailor whatever coaching a student comes in with a need for to what that student is going through in that moment. If it's related to a class or circumstance, again, with the balancing of classes and time, or struggling. I know that oftentimes there's a lot of students, that whole summer slide we all talk about. There might be some students, I'm sure none of yours out there, who maybe got into that summer slump starting in March. And they might be struggling with getting into the habit of reading a lot and different things like that. So they might be reading a little more slowly. I equate it to like running a marathon. You can't go from not running at all to being able to run, 20 miles, 23 miles in just 2 days. You've got to build up that endurance. Well, your students got to build up the academic endurance. And a big piece of that is reading. And I don't care what they read, but as long as they read something on a regular basis, it can help build that. But we talk about that, and whether it's note-taking in the science is different than our students in the arts or our students in humanities. But that's what my staff is tailored to do. They've been trained to do, to tailor it to our students. And we do different academic success workshops throughout the year. This year in the fall, all of the workshops will be virtual, which means we're going to present it live and in a type of session similar to this, so that way we can get some kind of interaction and some questions, but that will be recorded and then it's going to live on our website. So that way people can go back and visit those workshops to get the skills. There's the regular ones that we do, whether it's time management or preparing for finals or learning your learning styles, those type of regular ones. But this year we're doing new topics, in particular, how to be successful in a virtual environment, how to prepare for a remote, advising session, things like that, how to use all of the tools we have online to be successful with time management, which is going to be a different kind of challenge in a virtual world now. But those are offered and available to students throughout the year, and it's any student who can view those. Next. And then we do supplemental advising. So all of your students will have a faculty advisor, and that faculty advisor is going to be tied to their major. It will either be a faculty member from within that department or possibly the assistant dean of the school. It depends on the program and the major. There are certain cohorts that my office serves as the primary faculty advisor of, and one of those is the provisionals we mentioned. But there's some other cohorts that we work with. So my team are a great group of generalists. They know, I won't say a little bit about every major, they know a lot of it about every major and all the nuances and the advising piece. So we are not looking to take the place of the faculty advisor, but just to supplement and give an additional layer of support, or answer questions if, say, a student is saying, hey, maybe I might want to add a minor from a whole different area. Maybe I'm a business major, but I want an art history minor, and that's in the School of Arts and Communications as opposed to the School of Business. If the faculty advisor can't answer that question, we can help them with that. So exploring majors and courses, liberal learning, which is what we call our what other schools call general education, we call it our liberal learning program. So helping them find the right match and fit to suit what their interests are and what their majors need, and piecing all of that together, just other policies and procedure clarifications, and then just helping them to come up with their academic plan. And all of this, again, is supplemental to their advisor, but open to anyone. And to aid in that, I'm just going to touch on this very lightly. We have what we call our PACs, our peer advising coaches. And those are specially trained students. So that way it's a peer-to-peer component, particularly right before advising. Oftentimes that's where students' anxieties start to go, particularly first-year students. Because for us, most of your students' schedules will be complete by orientation. There might be a little wiggle room of one class or two classes, but for the most part, that's taken care of for you. So the first time they have to register for classes, it could feel really overwhelming. Our PACs are there to help, and they'll have open virtual office hours for students to just address whatever questions. They're not going to advise them in the same way my area does or their faculty advisor would, but it's just that surface level stuff. Help them prepare for their faculty advisor session, so that way they're going there with more of the meaty questions, with the stuff that you really want to use their time for. Not where do I find this on what website. We can help them with that. But how do I pursue internships, or what would you recommend the research I'd be interested in? That kind of stuff, we can help the students prep for that session. And the PACs are a really great support for that. Next. So that in a really big nutshell, maybe I get to be a little long-winded, sorry, but that's CSS. And when we're on campus currently, we're not there. We're all working virtually. So the office is functioning. It's just all in a virtual manner right now. But we're in Roscoe West Hall, which is a great resource space on campus, because within that building is also the tutoring center, is also the career and leadership office, is also our ARC, Accessibility Resource Center. So there's a lot of really great things just located all in that same space. And our email, css@tcnj, our website, css@tcnj. And if we have a little some moments afterwards, we'll go and check out the CSS website so I can point out a few key pieces.
Yeah, and Yvonne, I forgot to mention this, but we are going to make, when I send the email to the parents for next week's sign up for the next one, I'll make sure to include a link. Any presentations from here on out that we're running in the Caffeine chats, we'll be sure to put them on our website. So don't worry about writing down all the contact information. We'll get that for you. And we'll be sure to send that along.
Sounds good. Next up, we're going to chat quickly about our tutoring center. And just so you know, the tutoring center functions with, we have over 200, close to 300 actually, peer tutors. So these are other students who have gotten a B+ or better in particular courses. They are trained tutors. They are CRLA certified. They have to go through certain coursework and have certain number of hours that are monitored. These aren't just students who happen to be good at calculus sitting across the table from another student to help them out. These students are very purposefully trained to help the students learn, not correct the work for them, not hold their hand through the process, but to and not to reteach material, but to help our students do the best that they can in that course content. So this is whereas the Center for Student Success, you're working with professional staff members on generalized study skills. The Tutoring Center is working specifically of a peer-to-peer relationship on specific course content or writing in general. And sometimes that goes across, sometimes a tutor may want a student may want to tutor in writing, and in those sessions go across multiple classes. This week I happen to need something for FSP. Next week I need something for psychology. Sometimes if it's a very writing intensive course, they get a writing tutor just for that course. But for the most part, those are 50-minute sessions. Again, those are going to be all virtual, but we had some really good practice with that at the end of the spring semester. So I could chat more about that and let you know how that'll work through. Next slide. So the different types of tutoring that we offer is weekly individual tutoring. As I started to say before, it's a 50-minute session with another peer tutor. There's group tutoring sessions, and that often happens in the math and sciences because the demand is so high, but there is a really great benefit to be tutored in that type of environment because other people's questions really help your learning process as well. There's the writing consultation. So again, as I mentioned, you can have a writing tutor, or sometimes it's just, I have this one paper and I just want to meet with somebody one time to help me organize my thoughts and pull this together. And you can just do a one-time writing conference. You don't have to have it on a weekly basis. Or some students do that once at the beginning while they're writing a paper, and then one time midway through, especially if it's a big or heavy major paper, and then one time at the end. And again, they're not going to be there with a red pen circling everything. It's all under the philosophy of they're going to teach your kids to fish. Give a man a fish he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. They're teaching you to fish. That's what we do with CSS. That's what we do at the Tutoring Center, making sure that the students can be independent in their learning and learn to learn and learn to be successful on their own, knowing they can always come back for a refresher or additional support, but not to become dependent, because that's not really helping a student to succeed, not in the way that they should be. We have drop-in tutoring hours, and then there is e-tutoring, where oftentimes it is for writing, where they might provide an essay or something, and they put it in, and somebody, so it's asynchronous. It's happening outside of that, and then it gets back to the student with comments and suggestions and good quality feedback. But all of this is going to be done in a virtual manner come the fall. And this is what we had to shift to at the end of the spring semester. And we did it rather successfully. We were using Google Hangouts and Zoom. We're going to be using another new software to have people sign up for tutoring sessions in the fall. And all of that with online tutorials on how to do it, and all of that, it's going to be available to our students. But this, the benefit of a virtual and online tutoring appointment is, if you choose to record it, you can go back and visit that. You can go back and review, I know about 15 minutes in, we went over this particular problem or this particular concept, and it could be a real benefit to the students to have access to that long after the tutoring session, because that will be a great help in preparing for midterms and finals down the road. So this is our contact information. Again, you see Roscoe West Hall, our really great resource space, and can't get any easier than that for the email, tutoring@tcnj, or the tutoring center .tcnj.edu for our email. So this is me. Feel free to connect with me. And as I said, my email is real easy. imcruz@tcnj.edu. And I might be the person that is working with your student, or I can, share whatever questions you have with one of the staff members in the office, whether it's CSS or whether it's the tutoring center. But always know you have a contact. Always know that there is a place and a space and people there who are our whole purpose on campus, really pretty much everybody's purpose on TCNJ campus, is to support our students. But CSS, we love what we do. We are, it's an office of people who have been at the institution for many, 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 many years. Several alums are in our space. So it's lets you know, that kind of tells you something about who we are and the kind of institution we are, that we all kind of hang around and have this continued relationship with the institution. But
I can speak to that. I didn't think I'd make it more than 4 or 5 years, and I will be 9 in November, and in a couple of different spaces. I started off in admissions, obviously, that, and then I moved over into student affairs. But and that blew my mind about Frank hiring you. I mean, that's just another example of Frank's been around for a long time. Frank, fun fact, I know you know this, started off as the basketball coach, head basketball coach, and then made his way into records and registration, came from there. So thank you so much for that information. I'm just going to tweak through. I didn't see any specific, well, there was one specific question I think I answered about, are they automatically assigned a peer advising coach? And I answered no, that they do have to just connect with your office and then they'll hook you up, with the student, but the student does have to take the initiative for that. And I also wanted to just do a quick shout for any parents or guardians or students, because there might be a few of you on here there who are transferring to TCNJ. So I will easily tell you, and the orientation leaders in the Griffins are going to be talking about academics in their meetups this week. That's the focus leading into virtual orientation. But without fail, one of the biggest challenges with the transfer students is not that they haven't figured out how college works, right? You've at least a semester or a year, 2 years if you earned your associate's degree at a community college, but so they're not necessarily unused to college, but the rigor and the expectations of TCNJ, the feedback I get all the time is that that's the disconnect, is that it's just significantly more challenging, and they're going to get that whether they are in person or in the virtual space, right? There is a lot of class discussion. I can speak firsthand to that as a grad student. I had no idea how much I was going to have to participate in class. I went to a Big Ten school where I could just be a number and not a name. Not the case here, but just really for your transfer students too. I think a lot of times they are, they get in a little bit of a, okay, well, I should know how to do this. I've already done college before, and they don't seek out the resources early for the Center for Student Success and for tutoring. And I have so many of them who end up in my office or on my staff who say, I wish that I had connected with those earlier. So if you're a student, if you're a transfer student, I really just want to plug back, or if you're a parent, obviously, of a transfer student, that there's no shame, and you just got to get in there, because that difference in the rigor is a huge challenge. It's probably the largest challenge for our incoming transfer students as well. So I just wanted to add that plug.
No, I will absolutely echo that. There are oftentimes for our transfer students who come, to be accepted, they were wonderful students at their previous institution. And this sense of confidence, which is a great thing, because you don't want to come in underconfident.
Absolutely.
But sometimes there's a bit of an overconfidence and feeling like, I got this, and I know how to do this. And then when it starts to slip and feel a little different, then they don't want to come and reach out. Please know, as Lindsay referenced, no shit. The tutoring center, the average GPA for students who use our tutoring center is over a 3.0. Remember, I referenced those perfectionists that we seem to really populate our campus. They want that B to become a B plus, or an A minus, or the A minus to be an A. So somebody seeing you walk through the doors of the tutoring center is, there's no implication that, that student's struggling, that student's failing. Absolutely, completely not. The overwhelming majority of the students who are in there are just wanting to stay on top of my game. It's a great thing to do. The number of students who come to sign up within the first 2 weeks of the semester, it's, only a tiny percentage of those are because they're struggling that early. Most of them is just like, okay, I know this calculus course, this history course, this communications course, whatever it is. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge, or it might not, but you know what? I'd rather have a tutor up front and have that weekly reinforcement. So please, it's not the shifting again of that high school mindset for those students. And I don't, most tutoring centers function in this way, but depending on the other institution a transfer student may be coming from, they may have had a different experience. But, a high schooler often thinks if you need additional tutoring, it's because you're really, really struggling. And here, really just to be on your game and max your game.
I wish somebody had hit me over the head and told me that when I was coming into school. I was a 4.0 out of high school, top, 5-10% of her class, and failed chemistry 112 my first semester because I did not know how to ask for help. And, even though I'm a big believer in, learning from that, and I had a great college experience afterwards because I learned those lessons the hard way first time. I don't like to see anybody else do it if they can avoid it. So your offices and everything that kind of falls under your purview is just really such an invaluable resource. And for my parents and my guardians out there, this is not going to be, a lot of times it's, okay, we're talking to you tonight about that, but your student's going to get all this information as well. Usually typically during the first 4 to 6 weeks of the semester. Yvonne and I, when we were preparing for tonight, we're talking about, okay, now that we know that there's some virtual component to the fall, how do we want to kind of team up to kind of just continually remind and get the resource information in front of the students? And we've got a couple different thoughts on that. So just know that even though, you guys are hearing this information now, you all are, but your student's going to get this in a couple different ways throughout the course of that first semester. Really just, to give you some ammunition to kind of have that context, like if you check in on your student on week 3 or 4, right before they're coming up for their first round of midterms and exams, just kind of having that chat of, okay, how do you feel? And, do you think that you need to reach out to the tutoring center, the Center for Student Success? I think, the earlier the better with the engagement we always really stress. So, yeah. Okay.
I want to jump in with that. Traditionally what for the past, 16, 17 years, we've been doing a planner, an academic planner that we gave students. And it was a hard copy, good old fashioned calendar planner that was chock full of TCNJ events and resources and information pages about academic departments and all these different study tools and advising tools and all this great stuff. And then we were hit with this year's circumstance and not knowing exactly how the fall was going to play, several weeks ago. we're now going to have that same really awesome planner in a virtual format. It's going to be a virtual PDF that it's going to, every student and parent or guardian family member can access. And in it, there'll be all these different pages that give information that are going to have live hyperlinks to the different things. You know, the page about CSS is going to talk about how to set up an appointment, and boom, the hyperlink to how to do that is going to be right there. The tutoring page is going to talk about how to set up the tutoring sessions, and boom, they'll be able to click directly to that. So all of that will be housed within the planner, and all of our first year students will get it in a campus-wide email, and they're going to have access to it in so many different ways.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. If you, parents and guests joining us tonight, if you still have any questions for Yvonne, I am going to jump into a whole host of updates and things for you now, but Yvonne's going to stay on. So if you have any specific questions for her about Center for Student Success, for tutoring, or any of those pieces, feel free to still put them in the chat. Yvonne, can you see the chat on your end?
I can.
Is it coming up on your screen? Perfect. So if you see anything and they're shouting to you, feel free to jump in and respond, because I'll be toggling between a few different my notes pretty much in this screen to make sure I'm covering everything. So, all right, I have about 19 minutes left, and I am going to go pretty fast here because there's a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to start with the huge elephant in the room, which is housing. I think about 18 of you had questions about housing already on the chat tonight. I got a host of questions through the Ask a Question form leading up to tonight, and just some general updates for you on that. So to start things off, several questions about the spring semester. So if your student decides to ultimately commute or to go remote and they're living at home for the fall semester, they will be allowed to apply for housing for the spring semester if they choose to do that. And there's going to be more information about that process, about whether or not that's guaranteed. All those nuts and bolts things are coming, but they will have an opportunity to do so if things change, if they would like to live on campus, and or if we're in a position where we might be able to go back up to a double occupancy scenario that we're normally able to do. The other question around that came to roommates. So if your student selected a roommate when they initially applied to enroll at TCN or applied for housing at TCNJ, the goal is to try to get them to be on the same floor. Obviously, we can't get them in the same room because of single occupancy, but the goal is to try to get them on the same floor, because if we're able to move to a double occupancy for the spring, that would create a little bit more of an easier space to kind of condense in that they could live together. So we're getting some questions about the roommate piece. I don't know if you are applying for spring, if you are allowed to request a roommate at that time. I know that those are still details that are getting fleshed out because we're really focused on trying to get everybody in for the fall, but you will be able to apply, and you can stay tuned for some specifics on that as well, and probably sometime in the fall semester. Let's see, move-in. I have some questions already about move-in. So I have a big meeting on Wednesday this week, and the hope is that maybe by the next Caffeine chat, definitely by the next one after next week, in 2 weeks, we'll have some fleshed out details about move-in schedule. But I was in a meeting with the residential education and housing staff just to kind of flesh out what we think that'll look like. I would anticipate now that this is not going to be a one-day thing. Originally the original move-in date was Thursday, August 20th, and we typically had about 1,700 to 1,800 students moving on campus that day between our first year cohort, our provisional cohort, and our transfer cohort. I am sure that is not going to fly in all of the social distancing and guidelines. So it's already been limited down to 2 guests. My gut is that this is going to be a multi-day approach. Exactly what that looks like, we're still fleshing out those details, but I would anticipate that you're going to receive more about that within the next 2 weeks or so. And like I said, we have a big meeting on Wednesday to kind of see where that particular task force landed with based on some of our recommendations. And I will keep you posted as soon as I know more. Alrighty. There was a question about Thanksgiving, and after Thanksgiving. So yeah, so the current plan is that all students are going to go home for Thanksgiving, and they're going to stay at home between Thanksgiving and the end of the semester, and the entire rest of the semester's work would be done remotely. So I just want to clarify that. That was, I believe, in the President's Missive a few weeks back. I am also getting a question about are they allowed to go home and visit home? Which at first I was like, well, yeah, obviously, but then I was like, yeah. No, but really, and I think right now in this space, it's so funny because I just don't want to misspeak and give out wrong information. It's a pet peeve of mine normally, but it's an extra heightened pet peeve now that we're in the times that we're in. So I reached out to my dear friend and colleague, Emily in housing, and I said, how am I answering this question for the parents and students that are asking? So of course, yes, the answer is that they can come home and visit. I think the really important thing that people are going to need to start to wrap their head around is that their standard process, right, for how they're going about and doing things is going to be different if they're on campus, right? They're going to have to take their temperature every day. They're going to need to be wearing masks, the 6 feet apart. Everybody, if you're following those guidelines, we just want to make sure that the students are following those guidelines at home, because the last thing that anybody wants to do, I think the focus is just everybody's got to do their part to keep campus safe so that we can keep campus open. So I think that really just getting along the lines of that kind of just shifts in personal habits is going to be a big thing that's coming up. And, the goal there is that if you're doing that at home, just continuing what you're doing on campus at home if you're going home. But of course, obviously, they can come and visit. That would be, I don't know. I have 2 sons. I can't imagine not Yvonne, I would be hard pressed to see if a school said, no, you can't go home to visit your child. So hopefully that clears that up. The deadline to cancel without penalty. So this is really important. I'm going to actually save this and talk about housing when I talk about this when I talk about the academics and what their schedule is going to look like in terms of formatting for their classes for the fall. So hold tight on that. A couple questions about honors. So yes, we had an honors panel on Thursday night. We had 65 students join us, which was so exciting to talk a little bit with the honors students on my staff about the program, and housing was a big question that came up. So they will be living together. I do not know where. So it was supposed to be Norsworthy, but now that we've moved to single occupancy and it's just this giant jigsaw puzzle, I don't know that it's going to be necessarily Norsworthy, right? This year coming up, but we will be housing all of the honors students together in that space, in a space for that. So hopefully that answers some questions there. And then I think the last big one was related to dining. A lot of questions about dining. I don't have final answers on that, but I was told that within the next week or so, your students should be receiving information about signing up for a plan. I know that those plans have been modified. How they've been modified, I'm not sure. So I know that all that information should be coming to the students within the next week. So again, big reminder, but your student really just, the most important thing they're doing right now is checking that email every day or every 2 days so that they're not missing information that's coming from us. A whole lot of questions about cleaning bathrooms, which makes perfect sense. That would be a question I were asking if my student was coming in. And I unfortunately, I told you 2 weeks ago, I was waiting on some answers. I still don't have answers on that. So my understanding, again, thank you for your patience. I think in the next couple of weeks, the process and the protocol for how they're cleaning the bathrooms and what that's going to look like. And again, each residence hall being very different. So, the process for those pieces, for those cleaning pieces and that residential experience for those that'll be living on campus, I would anticipate, again, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to flesh that out. Also, a whole lot of questions along the same vein of cleaning, kind of tying into like health and safety. I don't have, again, too many updates right now with regards to, this is the question I've been asking, once a week. I feel like I'm a broken wheel and people are going to get mad at me, but I keep asking, well, what's the magic number? What's the number of cases that we have on campus before campus decides that they're going to shut down and go completely remote for the rest of the semester? I don't know that yet. So I'm asking it. I hope that we're going to get some information on that. What I can share with you, and I believe I mentioned this a little bit 2 weeks ago, but we do have a few rooms reserved on campus for students that start to exhibit symptoms, right, that might need to be tested for COVID. But if there is a student on campus who is diagnosed, they will have to go home for whatever 14-day isolation period or quarantine. Isolation and quarantine, I always get mixed up with which one's which. But if they have a confirmed positive case, they will need to go home for that piece. And I believe the protocol and again, the process for what the students are going to be going through there will be coming in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago. They have a lot of small details to figure out. And I think that, I really appreciate everybody's patience because I know that there's a lot of questions surrounding that. And I don't blame you for having those. All right, let's jump really quickly to academics. So I do have some updates on that. See? I had some. All right, so here's what's happening. Starting this week, I think I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but in case you missed that, it's a little bit of a everybody flexible scenario. So our faculty, and this was mandated by the governor of New Jersey, our faculty get to decide whether they would like to teach their class entirely remote or they would like to do a flex model, which is partially remote and partially in person, whatever that looks like. So they have that option. On the other side, your student also has the option of taking their classes entirely online or remote, or if they have the in-person, if they have a class or two that's going to be a flex, they can choose whether or not they want to participate in that flex and physically be on campus for their class, or if they would like to take that class remotely. So lots of flexibility on both sides. But the question I started raising a couple of weeks ago was, okay, but how are we connecting the dots from here to here, and what's that going to work like? So I have some more details for you. Starting this week, and this process is going to take until the first week in August. So please don't come back to me at next week's coffee chat on Sunday and start yelling at me because so-and-so has all their class formats in and your student doesn't have any. It was going to take about 3 weeks. There are like 3,000 different classes and sections of classes that this has to happen to. All of the academic departments are going to start to enter into pause what the format will be. So in pause, your student is going to have their schedule, and that schedule will have some type of designation if it's remote only, some designation if it's a flex, which again is that hybrid, or it actually might originally say TBA or TBD, right, if that faculty member is still deciding. So there will have eventually a designation, and the goal is that the faculty and the program assistants and the departments are going to be working on that over the next few weeks into the first week in August. That said, right, because then how that ties into the housing piece, the deadline to withdraw from housing without a penalty is August 10th, which is a Monday. So your student ideally, and that first week in August is going to have a very clear picture of kind of where their schedule is looking like. There is a potential that they are all online. There's a potential that they are all flex. And there's a potential that they're going to have a combination of both. But they will have that information in time to be able to, if they choose to withdraw from housing, they can do so without penalty by that August 10th deadline. So that's kind of how it all goes out. This is, hold on a second, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Nope, that was all those pieces. So it's coming. I'm sure that the departments are going to be talking about this more into virtual orientation, and I'm going to talk about virtual orientation in a minute. The other thing I need to say to you all is to be your patience has been unbelievable. I think that there could be a scenario where everybody just yells at me all day long, all the parents, and you don't. You're asking very thoughtful questions. You're asking questions I would ask, and you're being patient. And I sit here and I say, I don't know. I have to follow up with you on that. So first, let me say thank you. Second, I just want to make you aware that the college is going through furloughs right now. This is a huge, I'm not going to say a huge detriment, but this is pinching. This is putting some pressure on everybody, but in particular with regards to orientation, the academic side of the house, because our program assistants are the ones that are really the ones behind the scenes that are doing all the nuts and bolts stuff in terms of getting those codes into pause, into getting students into sections and finalizing things, and the chairs work on that. And right now our program assistants don't work Mondays and Thursdays, and we're closed on Fridays. So 2 days a week, you can imagine that they're cut down to under 50% normal capacity. It's just going to cause some potential delays on things. And I just want to, stress that we're trying to get to everybody, and we will do our very best. But I know that that's going to be a challenge, and that's just on the academic side of the house. There's challenges in all the houses. Yvonne's staff is out as well. I don't have staff, but I have somebody who supports me, and she's out as well. So, just kind of keeping that in mind, that those are mandated from the state with furloughs due to budget cuts and those types of things. So everybody's just working as hard as they can in those timeframes, but there might be a little bit of a lag. Speaking about that too, the AP scores, last I heard, they were coming July 15th from College Board. That is a significant delay. We normally get them right around July 1st. And again, tying back into the situation, we're going to try as hard as possible. There are going to be students who have changes to their schedules due to receiving AP credit, getting a 4 or 5 on those exams. So to the extent that we can start working on those before orientation, we will, but virtual orientation may be a space where we're going to be using that to kind of adjust schedules. It's really important this year to know that there is the potential that schedules are going to be changing after orientation. And that's something that historically doesn't typically happen. But this year, I anticipate that there are going to be a few students, more students than usual, who are going to have scheduling changes. I want to stress and rest assured, and I meet with the assistant deans every 2 weeks, and I tell them, I keep asking and they keep reassuring me, your student's going to get into the classes they need. It's just a matter of the jigsaw puzzle coming together. And especially when July, what happens with the AP scores is that some of that starts to shift a bit. So there's a lot that needs to happen in the next couple of weeks with the academics, but hopefully that just provides you with a little bit more information that's how your student is going to be able to receive and get an idea for which format they're going to do. And that'll be over the course of the next few weeks. More to come, because I'm sure I'll get some more updates as we get cooking here. There were some questions that were sent to me about one, just final thought with the academics, about the 504 plans. And if you have academic accommodations, that's our accessibility resource center. And that's the first place to start with those. I'm going to throw her email, Megan and her team in there. It's just arc@tcnj.edu. And, if you have, any of those plans and you need your student needs academic accommodations, please reach out to her office again, sooner rather than later, just so that we can start to kind of go through that process with you about paperwork and all those pieces. All right. So, one final thought, and I did just related to the academics, and I'll put this in the group chat again. This is just the link for the deferral information. We're getting questions about deferrals. That page has going to answer 95% of them, and any deferral questions that you have, if that page doesn't answer it, please just send them to the admissions office, because the Office of Admissions is handling all of the deferral requests and the inquiries regarding that. All righty, let's talk for a quick minute about virtual orientation that's coming up. So my transfer families, it'll be on students, it'll be on Tuesday, July 14th, that's 2 days from now. Oh gosh, it's so exciting. And for my first year, my provisional students, it'll be the week of July 20th. So a couple of broader things here. One, I'm not going to make your students sit through 6 to 8 hours of content over the course of a day in front of their computer. I think that's torture. I'm pretty sure I said that last week. There's going to be 3 sessions that your student's going to participate in. The first is a academic department session led by the chair of the department. This is easily going to be the most important thing that they go to. They're going to talk about the curriculum for the first semester. They're going to talk about why they got placed into certain classes. If your student has questions about their schedule, which again, I remind you, is not finalized, questions about their AP exams and scores. If you're a commuter student and your schedule looks a little clunky right now and you hope to kind of work some things around, all of those questions will be addressed in the department welcome and immediately afterwards if they need to make those adjustments. So I would just say to sit tight, and you're going to get an opportunity that chair is going to lead a great session, welcoming them to the institution, to the department, giving some context to what's been happening behind the scenes the last 6 to 8 weeks. And really all of those questions can be sent to there at that time. So that's the first thing they're doing. My School of Education families, your student gets to go to 2. So they get a little bit of an earlier start. That's going to be a 9 a.m. start, because they're going to meet with their School of Education department for their welcome and session. And then they're also going to then meet a short time later in the morning with their content area. So for example, if I have a secondary education mathematics major, their orientation date, and you're a first year student, I should preface that. Your orientation date will be Tuesday, July 21st. And you're going to go start off the day with the secondary education department welcome. And then you'll also meet with the math department. So because you're dual majors, you're going to get twice the fun. So just a heads up on that. The second component that everybody will get, so first was the academic department session. The second one they're going to get is called a Roscoe Roundup. So all of our orientation groups that have been meeting biweekly over the summer were randomly assigned. And now you're going to get to have some fun and meet some students that are actually going to be in your class, whether that's virtual or in person. So it's a really great opportunity. The orientation leaders in Griffins are leading those. Don't say icebreakers, team building activities. It'll be a couple of fun things. And really, again, I know I stressed this 2 weeks ago, but if you're looking at your student and you're trying to figure out ways to kind of make lemons out of lemonade or lemonade out of lemons here, going to these things, I know a lot of people think that they're stupid, but they're having so much fun in them and they're learning so much. So I would encourage them to go to the roundup. Last one, so number 3 is a signature experiences panel. So we're going to have career and leadership development on as a special guest in a couple weeks, but there are tangible experiences that every college really provides their students. But I think the thing that's unique about TCNJ in this space is that you really can hit all 5, right? So our 5 pillars here with these signature experiences, a personalized, collaborative, and rigorous education experience. And yes, that is even online if we have to be online for a semester of that. Community engaged learning, global engagement, study abroad opportunities, leadership, and the mentored research undergrad experiences, or those hands-on options, your internships, your co-ops, those types of things. All 5 of those things are completely doable for every TCNJ student, whether first year provisional or transfer student, to have. And I can candidly speak to that because my cousin is a 2017 alumni. She did all 5 of those by the end of her sophomore year of college. She had 2 whole years to go with lots of opportunities. Just graduated this year with her master's in counseling from Rowan. So, she really, and think about her going into, those interviews for graduate school and being able to have these tangible experiences that she was talking about because she chose a school like TCNJ and the size of TCNJ, and she connected with the faculty, and she got all of these great opportunities because she put herself out there because we're small enough that everybody can tap that. I want to articulate that to the students, and the only way I know how to do that is to get the students who have done it to talk about it. So we're going to get a little panel. I have 5 people, each student talking about the experience that they have participated in, and it'll be a really great opportunity for your student to just learn and start to really get excited about all of the potential that they have to craft a really unique and powerful and special journey to TCNJ throughout their time at TCNJ. And yes, even for my transfer students who are only here for 2 years, I got you. You can do it too. So we're going to cover those 3 things in a virtual orientation. As I mentioned, there's no parent programming today. All of the parent programming that we typically do is these coffee chats every Sunday night. We're just being really intentional about giving more space for that. And so for my transfer students, you already have your schedule. You'll receive your confirmation email tomorrow with all of your Zoom links for Tuesday. And for my first year students, I apologize because I believe it said that you were getting your schedule last week. And yeah, I missed that. So the goal is we'll get you the schedule and the RSVP form tomorrow, Tuesday at the latest. So I'm on that. I have a huge note and a star here on my thing to make sure to do that. So more information coming from my first year students and my provisional students there. I did get a question about, is the virtual orientation, these are group sessions. So everybody in the department will be together, but then they will have an opportunity to stick around or to ask some individual questions with their department chair if they need to after the fact. Woo, I think that might have been all I had time for today. Oh, okay. So one more thing. The student involvement piece, engagement piece. I don't have a lot of updates on that, but I talked to my colleague who's the assistant director for student involvement last week. I said, hey, I have a parent chat coming up. They are asking great, very real questions about what the non-academic life is going to be like at TCNJ if we're canceling large-scale programming and we can't have that. So I have a couple of small updates. It's not going to be totally the whole big picture, but I was told, so clubs and organizations are still going to continue to meet. There will be a virtual student organization fair at the start of the semester. All of our club meetings, our weekly club meetings, are going to be online. So that piece is there, but the hope is that we're going to be able to have small to medium-sized programming that will meet with all of the requirements that we have, obviously based on the state and CDC guidelines with regards to social distancing. The Office of Student Involvement is putting together almost like a proposal checklist thing so that student organizations can submit approval for an event, and clearly outlining how they're going to be modifying said event so that it can maintain all of the social distancing and whatnot guidelines on campus. And what does that look like in the spirit of equity? Is it that every student organization can do one, that those who apply can do 1 or 2? But I don't know. I know that my colleague Jen said that was the work they're doing behind the scenes right now is to flush out a process so that there can be some activities that are going on campus. And the last piece to that, she oversees our college union board, which does all of our typically larger scale programming on campus for there. And, they have their brainstorming. They're coming up with really great, creative, fun ideas that can be done in small spaces, can be done in small and medium groups. So I know that that's not going to be a really satisfying answer to all of you, with regards to kind of what that campus life is going to be like. But again, as we go on here in the next couple of weeks, I hope that information becomes a little bit more readily available for all of you. And I will say too, oh gosh, I just let Yvonne back in and I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? No, it's okay. The student involvement, those pieces. Oh, yes. So every week I take a couple of your questions and I send them to my boss and I say, hey, just send this up the pipeline, because I really want to make sure that your voices and your questions and your concerns are heard by more than just me. So please know I just did it this afternoon. I typically do it on Sundays before our chat. I'll go through, there are a lot of the same questions. I'll pick out a few with the general themes and I send them off to my supervisor, and she usually hops in on this call. So if you're out there, hi. and I just send them to her and I say, hey, like, here's the pulse of where the parents are right now. And I just want you to know that we're listening, and, keep sending your questions. The hope is that we can get some of them answered here, like I said, in the coming weeks. But I really want you to know that I hear you, and that I can and I empathize with kind of where you're at. And hopefully each week that we keep doing these, more information will come from there. So, all right, I am 4 minutes over, which I typically don't like to do, but thank you so much for joining us tonight on the chat. Yvonne, thank you so much. For everybody else, I'll just throw in again my student transitions at tcnj.edu email. I know I can't get to answer all of you, but if you shoot us an email, Frank is amazing, and him and Maria and I are just trying to get through as many as possible. Yvonne, any last words for the group?
Just because I've had some trouble getting in and answering some people, just a really important question that I saw came through that I want everybody to hear. Tutoring is free. Tutoring CSS services all kind of built into, your tuition and so forth. It's just a service in the same way, all the Career Center and being involved in clubs and organizations. It's just seen as being part of our community. So that was a really important one that I wanted to be sure that you heard me say that.
I'm so glad you came back. That was a big one. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody. We'll see you next week. More to come. And like I said, I threw the general inbox in there. It's just student transitions at tcnj.edu, and we'll try to get back to you as fast as we can. Otherwise, have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Take care.